Welcome in again to the home edition of Perspectives. It's good to have you with us today. We've got some really interesting folk lined up to talk to. The first one you'll hear from, of course, is Tulsa County Commissioner Karen Keith. Then you'll hear from our station manager. Both of them you need to hear about. I'll tell you about that in a few minutes. I want to drop in a little bit of good news. And, you know, in this pandemic, we all need a little boost. And I'm going to try to start nosing around to see if I can find those things. Something that happened just recently that didn't get a lot of airplay, and I'm really sorry it didn't. 68, and that's a large number, area students were named National Merit semifinalists. Now that's in the middle of all this tornado of pandemic that we're living in. Give that some thought. That means that Oklahoma's educational system works in spite of you-know-who. Anyway, we're taping this on Thursday, September 17th. So some of the numbers you hear today regarding the pandemic may have changed between now and when this airs. So on Monday night. So take that into consideration. I want to welcome our first guest. I've known for a long time, and she's a delightful
Don't say how long.
to talk with. And she's with us today, Tulsa County Commissioner Karen Keith. Karen, good to have you.
Thank you, Sam. It's always good to see you.
Well, let's get this ball rolling, child. With first question out of the box, you and your husband came down with the virus, correct?
Yep.
Let's go back to the very beginning. When did you become suspicious you might have it?
Well, I mean, when we were taking this road trip, I kind of predicted that we were going to get it because when we were in the Panhandle in Texas, Pat, you forget when nobody's wearing a mask. It's so easy to forget. And, you know, I'm not into mask shaming for anybody, but these masks make all the difference in the world. But he didn't wear his mask into the store. And then forgetting that I had all the water and everything that we needed for the trip right there with us. He goes and gets a bottle of water, stands in line with all these people, and then comes out. And I'm meantime, you know, gassing up, and I looking at him, I go, we're going to get COVID from this. And about 3 days later, we were hiking, and Patrick completely ran out of air. Mm-hmm. And it was really weird, but we thought, okay, maybe it's altitude sickness. And that night, I thought he had a fever, and I just said, we're going to have to go home in the morning. But he woke up and he said, I think I'm fine. It's not. I said, I think it's COVID. I think we need to go. But bottom line, I got sick about 3 days later, and I had some issues, and then we hightailed it for home. And I had lost my taste. We stopped at a McDonald's, and I couldn't smell anything. I couldn't taste anything. And it was just, that was it. And, you know, we just had a lot of different symptoms off the spectrum of what people have experienced. I mean, Pat had things in his chest. I lost taste and smell, and we both had the fatigue, but he also had some of the muscle ache and those things. So, and we both, I've never slept like that in my life. It was interesting. And you get up and you think, I feel great, you know, and 2 hours later, it's like hitting a wall. And everybody most people I'd say that I've talked to about this.
I don't want you to get too deeply involved, but can you share with us some of the symptoms that caused you to realize, hey, I'm in trouble?
Well, I mean, I was very suspicious that Pat had COVID, but he right after, that initial deal, he really kind of rebounded, and it seemed to be fine. And then I had some issues with my gut, and then this sinus and those kinds of things, and then headache. So and Tylenol would pretty much knock that out. And then losing the taste and sense of smell, all that followed.
Did you or your husband, either one, have to be hospitalized?
No, and Sam, I never thought we would have to be hospitalized. I mean, we hightailed it home, and I just said, we got to power through this and get everything out of the car and into the house, and we did. But I can remember on the way back, I think we stopped at a Sonic, and literally had to sleep because the fatigue just really knocks it out. You just literally are at a Sonic. So it was it was an interesting experience.
Well, I'm so glad you're with us, and I mean that.
Thank you. We're fine. And I never thought we were going to go to the hospital. So we are lucky. But Sam, not everybody is. If you've got underlying issues, or if you're older than we are, you could have, other symptoms that are just, and not good. And, but we I think handled it. I say that it was absolutely manageable for us.
Commissioner, as I've said, we're taping this on the 17th, and it will air, of course, this coming Monday. The numbers are going to change. We're 5th in the nation in new virus cases. And I'm troubled with the fact, and I know you must be as well, that wearing a mask has become a political issue.
I think it's part silliness, because we've known for a long time. In the pandemic of 1918, they quickly figured out that this little mask was their best defense. So it's not some mysterious thing, but it's the easiest thing that we can all do. And I'm so grateful to our leadership here in Tulsa. The mayor has, he's been working on this issue from the get-go. And Bruce Dart, I'm going to start calling him Saint Bruce, because, he's following the science. This is 2020. We understand that science matters, and we have access to information. In 1918, they didn't really know exactly what was going on, and people were being stacked like wood out in the yard because so many people were dying. It was that bad. And at the time, they had some leaders that were saying, oh, this is no big deal. And I think a lot of people know about the parade in Philadelphia that was absolutely disastrous. So they held it because leadership wasn't paying attention to what was going on around them, and then lost hundreds of thousands of people. So
yeah, and I know too that they passed some sort of a bill that you couldn't talk about this. You could not talk about it because it was considered treason if you did. They didn't want anybody outside of the country to be aware, which I think is a very foolish move.
Well, they thought it would impact the morale of the troops.
Yeah.
So, but of course, our troops were dying right and left, and they were part of the super spreaders of that pandemic. But I just say that to illustrate that, this is our pandemic. And we have so much better science, and we've got better health protocols and all those things. They were giving them whiskey. Here's your best thing we can do for you. Here's some whiskey. So we clearly are in a much better position in that respect.
I know the White House has called on the governor of Oklahoma, Governor Stitt, to implement a state mask mandate. He refuses to do it.
He does.
It defies logic. And I'm not trying to paint you into a corner of one way or the other. That's just Sam's opinion. Let me change real quick because we're quickly running out of time. Are we facing a rental eviction tsunami here?
Well, we could, but we're really working hard to try to stave that off. The county got the CARES funds from the federal government, and so we plowed $15 million of that for renters assistance, and that application deadline has been extended to September 30th. So if any of your listeners out there, they could still get an application in if you were in Tulsa County for some of this funding to help you. And the good news with that is, we certainly don't want people being put out on the street, but you also have to have some sympathy for these property owners who are trying to make their mortgages. They've got to stay, ahead of the game too. So these funds not only will keep people from getting evicted, but it also helps on the other end, which is keeping our property owners, their mortgages paid up.
One thing that concerns me about this, I know that there are two groups working hard on the outside to bring relief. People are trying to find places for folks to stay. And I'm told, and I can't verify this, but I'm told by a couple of friends of mine that they're seeing more and more folks in their late 20s, early 30s move back in with their parents already.
Oh, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of that. And you kind of, I mean, if you stay within your tribe and people aren't going out and partying and all that, then you're fairly safe. And for some people, this can be a very lonely time. And so being with your family, your tribe might be, in terms of mental health, the best thing you can do.
Commissioner, we're out of time. I'm sorry. Thank you for taking time to visit. And by the way, my floor director here at home is my wife, Linda, and I know you know her. She said to tell you hello.
Hello to Linda. She's wonderful.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back again. Thank you, Commissioner. We'll be back with more right after this.
Okay. Thanks, Sam.